One of the things I love about these injection rackets is the fact that they are so flat and smooth, and it gives you the opportunity to do some spinning, and I really enjoy that. And my friend Stafford Murray, who has released a very detailed book on squash, which I will be reviewing at some point once I go to the UK and collect it, introduced me how to do this. He showed me how to do it, and he was so good he used to use his second finger to keep it going, which was pretty cool. Anyway, so this week's question, put that back up there. This week's question is another one about changing the size of squash courts, and it's clear that I somehow am obsessed with the idea of doing that, but I do think that there's good reasons behind my obsession. And this one is a very simple one. Would you prefer the court to be wider or longer? Sorry for about the noise outside there. Now, what I'm really interested in here is, how do you think it would change the game? Now, for me, I would much prefer a wider court, because when I say much prefer, I'd much prefer a wider court, sorry. What I meant was that it wouldn't have to necessarily be that much wider. It could just be like a racket length width extra. That might be enough to stop people from volleying more. If you made it longer, you'd have to work harder. I think that there'd be more of a physical aspect to that. You'd boast more, and you'd play some different angle boasts, and you'd get people to work harder. There'd be less cross courts. So I would prefer the idea of a wider court. But the real question is, depending on your answer, that might tell you a lot about the game that you play. Maybe my cross courts are not very good, and that's why I want to make the court wider. I feel that my straight drives are very good, okay, anyway, they're not very good, but they're okay. So maybe I don't really need to feel that, my boasts are pretty good. I think I've got pretty good boasts. I don't necessarily want the court longer. And if you think about the extreme, imagine that the court was, like 30% narrower. That would be a boring game, because it would just be too much about. It would seem more like hardball, which is the American, kind of the previous American version, which was a little bit longer than a squash court, I believe. That it would all be about front back, and I prefer that idea of width. And of course, if you made it 30% wider, that would change the game completely, assuming that you kept the length in both of those cases. So if you're the kind of person who wants to make the court longer, perhaps that's because maybe your shots, your boasts aren't very good. That would be, that's what I'm trying to get at here, that changing the size of the court or in a particular dimension might make you realise that you're not good at one aspect of the game, and that's why you want to make it different. So anyway, just a silly question this week, not that all of them are serious or anything, but would you prefer the court to be wider? Would you prefer the court to be longer? Have you played on different courts? I've mentioned before that I played the court that I used to play on was about half a racket's length narrower, and I didn't notice at first until somebody told me, and I did notice then that I was having a lot of trouble getting the ball behind my opponent, and it sort of changed the game, but probably not enough that we would ever notice it. So anyway, if you've played on different size courts, how did it go? Tell me what you think. What would you prefer, wider or longer? And if you get a chance, have a practice at spinning some rackets. It's pretty fun. See ya.